Hey everybody, and welcome to Inside Quest. We're the sumo dojo for your mind. Our goal is to bring on amazing people who can help you beef up your brain. And if you're looking to force feed your intellect, there's no better guest than the man joining us today. He is an incredibly successful entrepreneur who has started multiple multi-million-dollar businesses, and doing so only cost him approximately $150 million. Yes, you heard that right. This former number 30 employee at Facebook at one point owned 0.1% of the social juggernaut, ownership that would be worth over $150 million today. Sadly, however, he got fired before he cashed out and walked away with nothing. While most people would see only the loss, ultimately Noah saw the lesson that could be learned, and not being someone who saw the long-term value in sitting around and moping for the rest of his life, he made the decision to mercilessly climb his way out of that hole, turning his lemons not just into lemonade, but into a highly profitable lemonade stand. With lessons learned and a soul searched for and found, he has since crafted himself into one of the most relentlessly efficient entrepreneurs in technology today. Eager to share what he has learned from his successes, failures, and tenure as both an entrepreneur and former employee of some of the largest and most dynamic companies on the planet, including Intuit, Facebook, and Mint.com. Noah has become known as one of the most gracious and effective mentors in the startup world. Draped in the credibility that comes with bootstrapping multiple successful companies and building one of the largest online ecosystems with over 1 million followers, he and his hard-won knowledge have been featured on television in the #1 iTunes smash hit, The Tim Ferriss Experiment, and in countless other places across the web. His value creation style of business is responsible for his dazzling success and well-deserved notoriety, as well as for the fact that his technologies and services are being used by some of the most recognizable names in business, including Disney, Airbnb, Zynga, the 4-Hour Workweek, The Art of Manliness, and Gaia Online, just to name a few. Please help me in welcoming the much respected and often lauded creator of AppSumo.com and SumoMe.com, the author of How I Lost $170 Million, the king of tacos, the chief sumo himself, Noah Kagan.
Best intro ever.
Well,
I was wondering
you,
who you were talking about.
He's going to be here.
I was like, I want to meet that guy.
That's funny. So, I want to start with a quote of yours,
Yeah,
if you
please.
would allow me to be so kind. I have learned that depression and happiness cannot be left to chance. That really, really jumped out at me, especially knowing the background of what happened at Facebook. I heard in an interview you said, I actually don't credit a lot of my success to resilience, which I found shocking. You said that persistence was the thing that you actually gave more credit to. How is it that you don't leave happiness or depression to chance?
So one of the quotes that goes along with that I heard recently that I really liked and stuck with me is persistence beats resistance, right? So everyone in our lives, even you were just telling me you were destitute, which means broke. That's a big word for me. But it means you had no money. And so to go from there to like a successful software company to a bar company is amazing. And not to say that everyone could do that. I mean, do you feel that way?
Can we put minimum requirements on it? So I'll say anyone who meets minimum requirements, yes, I think they can. And look, there's, to a certain extent, there's a genetic lottery, and you know, if you've got a true form of mental slowness or mental illness, you're really going to struggle. But assuming that you don't have that, yes, I think that anybody can sort of fight their way. And the reason that I believe that is because truly, Noah, I promise you, I did not show early signs of success. And if you looked at like my high school, you know how they do the Hall of Fame at the end?
Yeah.
So I was not most likely to succeed. I was essentially the class clown. They didn't call it that, but that was basically what I was. And in the beginning, I was really focused on being funny. Like that was my whole shtick. And my mom quietly assumed I was going to fail. So when
How'd you know that?
She told me.
Oh, shit.
Not at the time. This is actually one of my favorite stories. So my mom has always been my biggest cheerleader. Super, super rad woman. I love that woman more than you can imagine. And when I went to college, like I almost chickened out. And I was the only person, I think, to leave my state out of my high school. Like no one left the state. They all went to like 2 or 3 state schools.
What state is this?
Washington.
Okay.
And I almost chickened out. I'm like, all my friends are going to that school. Why don't I go to that school? And she was like, you got to chase your dreams. Like, you have to do it. There's no way. I will literally drag you to that school if I have to. That's my mom. So I was like, okay, mad respect. You know, she's right. I got to buck up and do this. So I end up going to USC and really fall in love and begin to find my love of learning and start slowly adopting a growth mindset. And so as I start having success, I say to my mom, who now was like constantly, when are you coming home? Like, I want to get you back. Like, I never thought you would stay. And I was like, why of all people did you push me so hard to get out of the house if you've spent the last 20 years trying to get me back? And she said, I always thought you would fail. And I was like, wow. Now keep in mind, never would you have known. She was the most encouraging, complimentary woman ever, as part of the reason that I had enough self-esteem and courage to go do it. But in the back of her mind, she's looking at my historical performance, and it was weak at best, right? So one thing I've talked about before, I got a 990 on the SATs. I took it twice, so that's a combined score.
Okay, I thought it was
like, ouch, right? So that's how I did. I sort of cheated my way through high school. I used charisma and building rapport with people to get, things like they would let me retake the test and, maybe turn a blind eye if they...
But like, so where did that moment come, right? Or was it always there and then it just came out in college?
No, your mom warned me about you and your questions.
Did you email Mama Sumo? She calls herself that. She like signs emails and everything.
No, I actually heard that she's grilled you your whole life and that you felt like your life was one big interrogation. I thought that was pretty funny.
It is a Jewish mother thing. They call and they remember everything. She's better than Evernote. She's like, what'd you do last, like this interview? Oh, she's gonna watch it and she'll leave comments. And if you leave a bad comment, she will reply. She'll talk some shit. Yeah, she'll talk smack to you.
That is fantastic.
So I think with like, when you came back to originally with like, what are the things about happiness and depression? I still go through it. And I think it's funny, I think when people think you get rich, and rich is all relative. Like 1 million is rich, 10 million is rich, having good friends is rich, I don't know, doing the things you want every day for work is rich. You still go through down days. Even when you're like the founder of like a Quest company that like everyone eats at the bars, at least all my friends do, I love the bars personally. I'm sure there's days where you're just like, oh, we're not doing that well, this thing sucks. And so I do think, and one of my buddies, Adam, and I talk about this a lot, it's like, how do you engineer your days to get you what you want? So like, for the past few months, I've been bored with work, which you're not supposed to say, right? Especially if you're running a company. You're like, no, of course we're not bored. We have all these people, and people like our products, and people use it. And then I realized it's my fault. I was like, oh, so you're bored, so what do you need to do to change that? Right. What do you do to make it exciting? And so like your company, what I've noticed is that in reality, you are a food company, but you've turned that into a media company of some sorts, because that's also what your passion is. So with my company, it's like, all right, what are things that I can do purposefully that'll make it more fun? So one thing that I do, you each have a perfect day. Everyone probably has thought about it a little bit, like what breakfast you have, what you work out, maybe you have like some sex, right? You have like, you read a book possibly, you go to movies, you do activities. And so what I think is really fascinating and what I've done is that like I have a list of those. And I'm like, what are the attributes of a perfect day? And I don't do it every morning, but I try to go through that list and say, all right, what are the things each day I know I can do so I can schedule time for those? Like I love reading. I love writing. I do like working out. So it's like, all right, I know these things make my days better. So like, I try to make sure every day I get to do a little piece of those. So making a list of your perfect day.
Yeah, you call it engineering happiness, right?
Yeah, that, or we used to do Gebby when I was really depressed. So after Facebook, I was depressed for a while. I go through phases like every few years, about every 2 years, I'll go through a phase where I'm just in a funk. I think that's when I grow a beard. But I feel good now. But yeah, you just go through phases. And so one thing I did was called Gebby. That really helped. So it was like gratitude, exercise, breakfast, and you. And so every single morning for a year, this is 2012, and this is the year we made the most money too, which is always kind of funny how that coincides. Yeah. So every morning, and Adam and I, it's from mybodytutor.com, it's one of my best friends, I would email him, what am I grateful for? So like, I would literally be grateful for like hot water. I'd be great, like one time I was really grateful for microwaves. I was like, they are really powerful. Like, you ever think about it? You just use them. You hit some numbers, then it heats up your shit like a Quest bar, or whatever you're doing. And then exercise, so like, I'm gonna go run, or I'm gonna work out, or whatever it is. Breakfast, so what am I gonna do for breakfast that's gonna make me feel good in the morning? And then you, so like, what's one thing today that I could do for myself that I know will make me feel good? So like one thing, I noticed that I love reading. You don't really get to read, because a lot of times when you're on a computer, you're not thinking, and I work at a computer all day. So I started breaking out every Tuesday morning from 10 to 11:30. You cannot schedule any time with me, I won't meet with anyone. And I will just be reading, because I know that really fulfills my time and makes my days good. So I just try to do like, okay, if I'm not feeling good, how do I go back to the basics, and how do I look at what are the core things I know will help me feel good?
Your concept of going back to the basics is really strong, and I want to tie it back to what you were saying a minute ago. if you're not going to leave this stuff to chance, you really do have to have a plan. And I see a guy who thinks like an entrepreneur, right? Somebody who, and one thing that we probably won't get too much into today because it's not our show, and you've done it so spectacularly on the web before, the thing that you did with Tim Ferriss at Creative Live, where people brought their business ideas, the wooden toothbrush guy, and, and literally Tim Ferriss was offering to buy it, and the guy was like, no, I don't want to. And you're like, what is happening, right? Like the things that people sort of reject in the process of finally realizing, okay, wait, this is that moment. It's you have like a really process-driven, like, here's how we find out if there's a market for our business before we go out and build our business. And that process-driven thing, when I saw this concept of engineering happiness, I thought, okay, this is really powerful. It's coming from a guy who clearly can take his business life and his personal life and find parallels and ways to get out of a depression. And if we can really go deep into that for a minute, and what I meant when I said I wanted to tie it in is, if we're going to really draw ourselves out of this and use the process of engineering, and you have to have systems in your daily life. So the Gebby thing that you did, of just taking something really simple that you're grateful for, and then corresponding in your business day where, okay, there's this period I recognize that writing is really powerful, and those are the things that are going to actually pull me out of depression, and I can talk openly about depression, because even though we're not supposed to in business, why aren't we supposed to, right? And challenging those assumptions. So how much of that do you try to feed through the organization, to have a process-driven view of how you do things that are more meaningful, like making sure that you enjoy your job?
With the people at Sumo, at AppSumo and SumoMe, I really, like, what I look for in people is, like, how do you want to spend your day? Like, what do you want to do all day? And so what I'm trying to do is, with at least our company, hire people who, they have certain things they want to do every day, and guess what? I will pay you to come do those things with us at our company. And just trying to align those. And so more just like with each person in the company, try to give them what they want that helps them make their lives feel meaningful and purpose. And hopefully it's part of our overall company vision too.
Why do you think that's useful?
I've never been asked this stuff. You know, it's funny. I think one of my missions in life is to have people love their jobs. And I think it's partly because my mom hated her job so much. She was a nurse. So if you're a nurse, that shit is hard. And she would come home and complain about it every day. Because it's hard work. Like, she had to do some really nasty stuff. I was like, I cannot believe, like, thank God I'm at a computer.
And I do believe you're referring to the fecal disimpacting.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes,
How did
indeed.
you, no, seriously, did you know that?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, okay. She had a clean butt, right? I was like, that is not my dream job.
Doesn't make my list either,
No. And so I think overall it kind of came back to me where I was just like, I've gone through 2 phases of business. And so from having her complain about her job so much, I was like, I definitely don't want that.
Right.
And I think about dying all the time. All the time I'm thinking about dying. I'm like, I'm definitely dying soon. I never thought I'd live till 30. It's not a joke. Wow. It's a crowd. They're like,
icy crowd.
Yeah, there's, so I never thought I'd be past 30. And so with that kind of mindset, which is, it's a little bit negative, but at the same time, I really try to think about how I'm spending each day and how I'm allocating that time. And the same with the people around me. Like with our company, I never say I have employees. I never say you work for me. Because I don't want people like that.
Right.
I want people that want to work with me, and I want to be a part of this team. And so in the 2 phases of the work that I've done throughout my life, I've had phases of things I've wanted to see in the world, and then I've had time where I wanted to make a lot of money. And this phase has always led me to kind of depression and kind of quitting more often in here, in this side of the phase. But the short-term impact was a lot, like, kind of felt good. The external side felt better. But this side where I'm like, I wanted to create a conference one day. I've never created a conference. I don't have the authority or the approval to do it, and I just did it. Like, I invited like Max Levchin, the founder of PayPal, and James Hong, the founder of Hot or Not, and Plenty of Fish, and Suicide Girls, and all these cool guys. And I was like, I just want to bring you guys all together, and maybe I'll make some money, maybe I won't, but I will attend. You'll have one attendee, and it'll be me. And that turned out I made $50,000 at 22. And I wasn't trying to make money. I was just trying to create this for the world. And so I do try to come back to that moment and those experiences of like, is the work I'm doing, how do I do the work that would, as we talked about, that I would even not get paid for? Because I just want to be doing that. So like AppSumo, now what I'm doing with SumoMe, with the conferences, Facebook, Mint. But the other times in my life where it's kind of a quick fix, it's an opportunity, other people are doing it, so it seems like it would make sense. Those are times I've flamed out, and it's been harder for me to persist. And at the end of it, I'm like, this doesn't feel really good.
Right.
But the time keeps moving forward. It doesn't pause for anything. And it makes me, not crazy, but it makes me really surprised when people hate their jobs or they hate what they're doing or they're wasting their time on things. And I'm like, it never comes back. So I think you come back to the question, what do you really want to do? So for me, I really wanted to share my time with you today. Like, I have a company I could be running and working on. I could be at the beach in Santa Monica. The weather's out nice today, but I was like, I love Quest, and I want to hear your stories as well. And so this is where I wanted to be doing. And I think we kind of forget that.
Yeah, it's weird. You're actually making me a little emotional, and that's really surprising to me. And it is so important that people be asking that question. And as somebody I am so grateful to you. You want to talk about gratitude for a second? I'm so grateful to you. I'd never met you before today. I knew who you were very much, but I'd never met you before today. But the way that you shared the Facebook story, and I wanted in the intro, the thing I wanted to capture was, I believe, and you may not even think of your own story this way, but I've used your story in my own life to empower me, so I'm very grateful. But what happened at Facebook, and you fucking owned it, man, and that's what's awesome. And go read up. He's talked endlessly about it. He wrote a book about it, and really talks about they should have fired me, right? It had gotten to the point where I was no longer effective in the company. They should have fired me, but nonetheless, it comes at a tremendous loss. Now, anyone else, man, I can't think of anyone else that would crash and burn from such, like, you can do the math. It's being able to do the math that makes it so hard, right?
Well, it's not doing the math, it's seeing my friends with McLarens.
Okay, that's maybe even worse. Yeah.
But yes, yeah.
That's super tangible. But you didn't break. And look, you've talked very publicly, time of depression, and you have to climb your way back out. But you do, right? You start talking to Adam, you put the Gebby program in place, and you do it. You do the hard work. Like you say, it doesn't make sense. I'm not just going to sit here and waste my life. Like, that notion, this is what triggered it when you were just talking about, like, what am I gonna, your shoes say King Sumo. His shoes say King Sumo. I love the fucking shoes. So it's all tied. Here's why it's all tied. Here's a guy who is asking himself, what little thing can I do today to love my life today, right? Like, you and I have learned the same lesson. We came maybe about it through different means, but it is like the lesson that I'm trying to impart upon people. Because when you meet young entrepreneurs, I get it. They're chasing money, right?
Yes.
They're chasing money. Totally understand. I did the same thing. And here's the thing. When people tell you, oh, money's empty or whatever, what they mean is if you're focused on what you can buy with money, money is empty. And you'll be totally bummed out and it won't deliver any of the things that you hoped it would. However, the reason that pursuit refuses to go away and it has lasted the ages is because money can facilitate your greatest dreams. And once you have fulfillment in you and you're pursuing something that actually brings value to the world and you can feel good about bringing that value, then having the resources to deliver on that becomes incredibly fucking powerful. It's totally moving. So you could have broken because you didn't make the money, right, while you were still in the money chasing phase, but you haven't. And now you're like literally the Pied Piper to an entire generation of entrepreneurs, myself included, who have watched the things that you've said and seen this utter calm in the midst of what should be just, and should by just statistical numbers, would be devastating to anybody else. And they never again find fulfillment or beauty or joy or love or something that's so light and frivolous that they would put King Sumo on their shoes.
Yep.
Like, it's fucking breathtaking. And so thank you.
Awesome.
That is very much something that I'm grateful for. And it goes back to that notion of systematizing. So how are you now? So you've transitioned out of the Gebby, you don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
But what are you doing now to continue to engineer your happiness?
One thing that you got me kind of reflecting on is that, like, I think in terms of dying, I don't want this to be like, it's not a negative. It's just more of a reality that I think we don't think about. Because in the day-to-day of our micro, we go to the work, we do our work, we go home, we go to the drink, we Uber back home, pass out, and the next day just happens, and you kind of live the micro of life. You don't think about the macro. Right. And I do think about more. I thought about this particularly more recently. It's like, okay, when they bury me, what can I take with me, right? So nothing, right? It's just your body. And that's kind of a profound thing for myself, where I was like, so all this material stuff or these things I can't do anything with them when I die. So why are we so obsessed with getting more of them, and you have the bigger house and you have all this stuff, like you're still the same person?
It's interesting. I approach that from a slightly different stance, which is, to me, all of life is but brain chemistry, right? So I'm electrical and chemical impulses, and that's it. That is the sum total. So let's say I could take everything with me in death. if my brain shuts off, I can't derive any pleasure out of it. Even the future is only felt in that it manifests as a current state, right? So if you obsess about the future and there's something you're worried about, it becomes that is anxiety, right? You're fretting over a future thing that hasn't happened yet. And it becomes very real in your mind because the only thing that exists is this current moment. So you can very easily bring the past into the current moment. You can very easily bring the future into the current moment. And what you do with that, you could bring the future in as the most beautiful thing in your life, right? So at the depths of depression, you could paint a vision for what you're going to do, whatever it's going to be, and then you start getting those small wins and moving towards it. And but ultimately, it started with that compelling future. You had a compelling future, and I'm totally plagiarizing Tony Robbins, but that like really hit me when he said when people are they're not motivated, they don't do anything, it's because they don't have a sense of a compelling future. And so for me, Quest was, I was literally thinking about what chemicals do I want to pump through my brain on a daily basis, right? What do I want to feel? Because ultimately that's all Quest is ever going to be. It means something to the people out there, but that's their experience, it's not mine. My experience is right here, right now, what chemicals do I want to feel? And the favorite chemical for me is that moment where you see somebody else wake up and realize that they're capable of doing more. Like that is the fucking juice of my life. And I focus on that with not only myself, and it changed when it happened to me, or when I made it happen in myself, if I can be an active participant in that. When I made it happen for myself, it ended up changing everything. It was the most beautiful moment of my life. I can still think back to how that felt, to think, oh my God. And look, it comes on slowly. It wasn't like a lightning bolt hit me, but you start waking up to, oh my, I could control that. I don't have to feel that way. I can, feel better. I can learn. I can grow. But when you see it happen to somebody else, that's so fucking awesome. So we made a decision right away in the beginning about what we were as a company, and that we had to choose. Are we a trophy that you give to somebody with six-pack abs, and you go, well done for getting the six-pack abs? Or were we the catalyst of change that you give to somebody who they want to do something with their life, they have the will to do it, but they just haven't had that nudge or that wake-up call or whatever it was that they needed to take that step that's ultimately going to lead them on a beautiful journey? And look, I'm not a fool. I know that the vast majority of people will do nothing with that gift. The vast majority.
Yeah.
But I don't care, because I'm thinking about what brain chemistry do I want to feel. And when you get a spark out of one person, when I look out here and I see the same faces week after week, and I see people really reaching for something, really trying to grow, it's like, that's what makes me go, fuck, I could die today, cool.
How do you stay so humble? That's one thing I've got, because like there's a success trap where the more successful you get, you finally got what you want, and then you kind of stop doing those things, and then you also almost get a little arrogant about it. And you kind of lose that core of the brain chemistry and being able to empower these other people with their journeys. Like how do you stay humble with all this? Especially 2,000 employees, like it's amazing.
It's interesting. I don't stay humble like that, and it really comes from when you fall down on your face as often as I do, when you're inadequate and as unprepared for the challenge as often as I am. You don't have to work to stay humble. It's right there, right? So humility finds me every day.
That's huge, because I think people don't think that happens, especially for you.
And the funny thing is, so when we started the show, and we talked about this off camera, so hopefully you know that I wasn't bullshitting you off camera. Very, very true. The primary motivator for me to do this is to bring value to other people, because I felt I was given a gift. I encountered what we call the Quest mindset. It changed my life. I'm desperate to give that gift. I made myself a promise that I would give that gift to as many people as I could. Now, if you don't acknowledge where you are now and the things that scare you, that you're insecure about, you have anxiety about, or whatever, you're not going to accurately deal with the situation. You're going to be dealing with the world the way you wish it were, rather than the way it actually is, right? So humility finds me, i.e., because my mission is to help as many people wake up and get out of the matrix as humanly possible. To lie and say, hey, I'm just a better version of you, like hey, I was gifted better shit, I'm smarter than you, whatever, like that doesn't help anybody, and it's a lie. So I'm at times, I'm like, oh my God, like, what was I thinking? Like, that didn't make any sense. And you get your ass handed to you by stuff. So I had to learn early on that you have to have self-esteem. You have to. The human animal, just absolutely to function, must have self-esteem. And I watched myself build my self-esteem around something that didn't make sense, and that was being smart and being right. Because being smart, feeling smart, and people telling you you're smart, I've never met anyone for whom that didn't feel awesome. and I'm on a crusade. People are terrified to tell me that I'm smart because I will go out of my way to say I'm not smart. I don't want to reinforce that in people. But even still, when they say it, I'm like, oh shit, I'm smart, right? Like that felt nice.
I got my A, yeah.
Right, so, trying not to focus on that or not to focus on being right, I had to switch because I really wanted a strong ego and I was wrong too often and I felt dumb too often to build my self-esteem around that. It made me really fragile. It made me want to hide from challenge and conflict. So I said, okay, well, what if I built my self-esteem around something else so that I could constantly encounter humility in its most aggressive form and yet still come out of it better. Meaning I've gained a new skill. And that was to switch my self-esteem over to identifying the right answer faster than anyone else and to tell myself a narrative about growth and improvement. So I'm the guy that's more ready to admit when he's wrong, more ready to admit that he doesn't know, more ready to admit that he made a mistake than anyone else. And I actually get a sense of almost kind of cutely arrogant pride out of that, right? Because you can only be so arrogant when you're screaming, I was wrong, I was wrong. But in being willing to look at my flaws, all that stuff, like that very act is what gives me the self-esteem. But because you're looking at something that's embarrassing or a weakness, or it doesn't exactly make you feel like a stud. But it just gives you the power to keep going.
Do you have a last example of something you got humbled with or how you put yourself in that position? Because I think when people are watching this, I'm trying to figure out what separated you and your success and what you've been able to do versus someone watching the computer that's like, well, I have low self-esteem. Or I never had that mindset spark moment.
You want an example, like just an everyday example of when I muff something up?
Not that I want you to fail, but like,
No. But is that what you're looking for?
I'm kind of curious. And then I'm curious how you start getting that self-esteem and that mindset that you were
Perfect, because you guys have all been here while it was happening. So one, I think I messed up a word. Instead of persistence, I call it resilience. Then again, I got so fucking lost. Like I was like, twice I recaptured what it was I was trying to tie back in and then it would fucking slip away again. And I'm like, what is wrong with me? I don't do drugs. Like, what is happening? So I thought, fuck, you know what? I'm stoked right now. I'm stoked that I fucked that up because now I'm gonna win these guys back over. And I asked myself a simple question, how is that the best thing that happened to me? And it's the best thing that happened to me because now I'm at a deficit. So when I climb my way back out and by the end, everybody's like, oh my God, it's a fucking amazing episode. I'm gonna be like, we started down here, motherfucker. Right? So but the simple framing of saying, just like I had to own, I messed that up, right? Okay, cool, that didn't go the way that I want, but I view myself through the lens of a lifetime, not the lens of a moment, so I don't think, God, my life value is based on my interview with Noah Kagan. That's not it, right? That doesn't make sense. But hey, if I can learn something in my interview with Noah Kagan, I may be really good at this over time, right? So that looking back on what I do with IQ over however many years we end up doing this, I may go, wow, by the end, like I was really getting proficient at it. And to me, I judge the proficiency, how many people am I snatching out of the matrix, right? So that for me is fun. So literally, as I was sitting there like, fumbling over my words, and I could see you looking at me like, oh God, I hope for your sake you find it again.
I was trying to alley-oop you.
Right?
Come on,
I could feel it, man. And at that moment I go, okay, cool, like, I now get to practice winning people back over, right? So whereas before the episode started, I was just practicing another interview. But then, like partway through, it turned into, oh cool, I get to practice winning people back over. So it's a framing game, right? Like how do you look at this problem? How do you frame it? What's the story you tell yourself about yourself? Yeah. Which brings me to my question. What's the story you tell yourself about yourself?
You know, it's funny, we all have stories, and you know your story because that's the answer you give right away. Like you're not pausing. And the pause is when you actually have to think, right? Because we're used to the response. Like, oh yeah, I have this story. And that's the story that I always just say to people. And the story that I always used to say to people is like, I didn't want to become like my dad. My dad came from Israel, didn't speak English, worked in Sears on carpets, then started selling copiers, made a lot of money selling copiers, did a lot of drugs, and then ended up passing away. And so I was very scared of because I've had these experiences. Facebook, grew a lot, got let go. Mint grew, I quit. Facebook games grew, I quit. And then it was like AppSumo, and then I was like, man, you're doing this pattern, and you're falling really into the same things that you didn't want the store to be. And I went to psychoanalysis, and I went to therapy, and I tried to work on all that stuff. And a lot of the moments come in the shower. Or they're like, a lot of your greatest moments don't come on your computer. It's just when you take a little bit of a moment. I know meditating is like the coolest thing now, but like when you're walking around or you're giving yourself some time to think. And I remember thinking like, okay, why don't I just embrace the good things that my dad was doing? Like my dad was extremely generous. He was extremely generous to everyone. And he was extremely like hustle. He would just go hustle on people. He would just go cold call, door to door. But he also had some downfalls. Like he wasn't reliable, he wasn't responsible. He ended up doing a lot of drugs. And so I was like, well, instead of always thinking like you're gonna fall into that trap, why don't you just bless that you learned that from him? And now I can see that he lived that life, and these parts that I don't wanna do, I can actually even learn from. So now I'm like a little overly responsible. I try to be overly reliable. I try to do moderate drug use. Bad joke. So that was the kind of story I told myself then. My story now, man, like, I think the story now, if I had to think, like my first thought, like what comes to my mind is like, how can I make it fun? In the things I'm doing with my relationship with my girlfriend, I call it the best boyfriend ever mindset. So how would the best boyfriend ever act now? So if she's being whiny, if she's being needy, what would the best boyfriend ever do? He's gonna go hug her. Fuck, just go hug her then. Right? So, and that's what I do. Instead of the situations happening on me, like how do I make them fun? I don't like the work I'm doing. All right, well, so hire some people to do the work you don't like to do. And the interviews, you hate the interviews? All right, well, how do you make them fun? We're hiring a lot. And I interview, I don't know, maybe 5 people a day, maybe more, maybe a little less. And you know, I've seen thousands of resumes and I've seen thousands of people, not more. And one of the biggest things that I can see through people is most people don't persist. They have 4-month jobs. Like they want a job at Quest and they send Tom a tweet. Hey man, I'd love to come work for you. Right? How many people actually go out of their way to make a full documentary about things that Tom's interested in? How many people go out of their way to like bake him something really healthy with Quest? Or maybe do something really special? But what a lot of us do is just put in the minimum effort and then we expect the maximum results, right? Yeah. And so with having fun, I think what I thought about a few days ago really strongly was like, in life, and this is maybe in terms of what it is all around, is like you get out what you are putting in. I'm trying to hire great people and I'm putting in 1 hour a day and I'm not getting great people. And then so a few days I was like, well, what if I put in a lot of hours? And I worked really hard and I tried to be creative and I made it as fun as possible and I put a lot in. I started getting stuff out. And I think that was just a good kind of a life takeaway from it where it's like, you're gonna get out what you put in. And so if you're putting in minimal, you're gonna get out minimal.
Yeah, that is a lesson that not a lot of people get, and I'll never understand why. Like, it's such a simple thing to say, what would blow me away, right? Like, if you at least do the thing that would blow you away, maybe you got a shot. Maybe you guys don't line up or whatever, but when people come in and do something that they wouldn't be impressed by, then it's like I have to ask the question, why would I be impressed by that, right? So interviewing, sounds like you and I have very similar backgrounds in that. I have interviewed, I'm going to put it at over 1,500 people. I did the math once. That's a lot of people. Like, it doesn't sound like a big number until you really run the math and think about how many people per day, every day you have to see. And that's how many people I saw. When we were first growing and the growth was just crazy, crazy explosive, for as long as I could, I held on to, if you get hired here, you interviewed with me, simple as. Whether you were the janitor, line worker, or the EVP of sales, it didn't matter. I was going to interview you because I was so hell-bent to create a culture. Because the one thing I knew is that ultimately I won't be able to touch everyone. So everyone needs to be a reflection of the mindset. And people refer to Quest as a cult, and rightfully so. If cult didn't have a negative connotation, it would be a moniker that I would wear with pride. We wear it all around here, a little tongue-in-cheek. But it's that way because we find people who are really trying to do something with their lives, who are like you, and I say that because I consider you one of the most active people in your own life that I've ever come across in meeting people that are very active online. You were highly intentional in even the things that ended up getting you fired from Facebook were really intentional. The thing that allowed you to climb back out was really intentional. Making your day fun, really intentional. There was one thing you said, you were like, today I really want my day to be cool, so I'm gonna make sure I high five 5 people. And I thought, that's so cool. It's so cool because it's like this hilarious, small goal that you knew would put a smile on your face, right? That you knew looking back, like would actually be meaningful in its silliness. Or you went to a bar one time dressed up as a gorilla or something? A bear?
It was a strip club. It was my friend, and Edmund and I had he did the bear outfit that night.
That is fantastic.
It was a pretty, I'll tell you though, when you wear like yellow shoes or a bear costume to a strip club, people notice you. And I think that's the thing. It's those things in life though that are actually on the edge or the more bold that I find the more interesting. And it doesn't mean you always have to go extreme. But a lot of society now kind of all wants us to go right into the middle and to be in the same and follow in line and raise our hands. And I think especially with business, no one notices the middle, right? You make businesses on the edges and taking risks and doing things that people didn't think could be done. Like even in my company now, I saw my old boss yesterday, and I remember distinctly the first week I started at AppSumo, he was like, "Oh yeah, there's no way it's going to go on." Right? He wants it to go to the middle. He wants it to be, and he loves me, and he didn't mean it negatively. He just didn't really think it was a viable idea versus other things.
Sure.
So it just, the shoes and even your shoes, it's really cool actually.
Thank you. Yeah, I've got a bit of a thing for shoes.
Well, one thing I had to ask is for getting out of the matrix, and then the question I had is like, how did you sell your first bar? And then for someone watching or someone in the crowd or myself as well, and I think that's really astute what you're saying is that people think that we don't try to check ourselves, and I think your level of self-awareness and that you don't take yourself so seriously and then you're still trying to improve, most people stop doing, or they don't start trying to be self-aware and try to keep improving. People are like, oh no, I had someone email me and they're like, oh, you probably wouldn't want to learn from me. And I'm like, dude, I've learned from my 18-year-old cousin on a canoe in Lake Austin. He was talking to me about being appreciative. And I was like, damn, that's great. So I think if you stop trying to be self-aware and stop learning from people, it's probably where you're gonna start failing. Or not failing, but I don't think it'll help you as much in life. So for you, I guess, how'd you sell your first bar? And then if I'm stuck in the matrix, what's like the first thing I could do to kind of start moving out of that?
Well, so I'll answer the first one first. We sold our first bar by giving away a lot of bars. So in the beginning, we thought we've really created something, it's real, right? Like we really believe in this. If you eat it, it's going to give you a positive result. It's going to taste amazing, but it's really good nutritionally. And not like a little better. This wasn't a 10% improvement over the bars that were out there. It was a 0 to 1, right, in Peter Thiel's language. There were no bars with our level of protein, with our level of taste that didn't have sugar. They just didn't exist. And they didn't have like 2 grams of sugar. They had like 15, 20 grams of sugar. So we came in and it was a revolution of the industry. So we said, if we can give these to people, they're going to try it, they're going to love it, and then we've got a chance to engage with them. So our goal was to create a community that evangelized our customers. So we didn't want to make them happy, we wanted to evangelize them. So if you touched Quest at any point, we were going to do something so over the top that it was going to be like the bear suit and the yellow shoes in the strip club. Like people are like, I got to tell somebody about
so
this.
Like, what were you guys doing?
Crazy. My favorite story is we had a woman who called us up, she's very angry. You guys left the package on my doorstep and my dog ate it, and so I want a refund. I'm not FedEx. FedEx left the package on your doorstep. You let your dog out. I don't control your dog's activities in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But we didn't say any of that to her because that's not going to evangelize her. So we were like, oh my God, we are so sorry. We will absolutely, would you like a refund or would you want us to rush ship you some replacements? Oh, actually, I'd prefer the rush shipment. You got it. It's on its way. It'll be there overnight. Boom. And we have stuff like that all the time, all the time. And people sometimes get up in arms about what are called demon customers, people who know that that's your reputation, and so they will do all kind. Literally, they're finishing the last bite as they're talking to you on the phone. You know, oh, I lost my bars, they were stolen, whatever, send them to me. And it's like, I'd rather take care of that person than miss the person who legitimately, like, something went wrong, and we can be there to serve them. Because look, our goal is we want to end metabolic disease. That's going to take a very long time, and it's going to take a lot of involvement from our consumer base, because without them supporting us by buying the product, we won't have the revenue stream that we need to do the research and development to actually figure this stuff out. Like, we've already spent millions of dollars in researching cancer to see what role does metabolism play in that and how can it be combated with food. So that's all because there's a group of people out there who really believe in our products, believe that they're working in their life, and believe that we will take care of them, that there's something more, and that the brand is actually interested in good things happening to them that have nothing to do with the bars, right? This episode is actually an anomaly. I never talk about the product on this show because I want people to know authentically, truly, I made myself a promise that I was going to give people the gift that was given to me, and that's mindset, which brings me to the second thing you asked, which for me, Mindset is everything. And once you change your mindset, then you can get out of the matrix, because the matrix really is just your mindset. So I, at one point, it was about probably 20 years ago at this point, I had a feeling that my life could be more, but I didn't know how to make it more. And that's literally like the opening line of the Matrix, right? Where he says, you have this feeling, don't you? Yes, what is the Matrix? It was just like all the verbiage that was sort of running in my head comes out in that movie, and it just really hit home. It was the perfect metaphor for me of what it was like to be trapped in the system, but you can't see the system somehow, only to finally realize that the system is the way that you think about things. And for me, and I think it's a little bit different for everybody, but for me, it really was tied to my self-esteem, the things that I valued about myself, which were very fixed traits of. The thing I tell people, read Mindset by Carol Dweck, right? That book is like step one of getting out of the matrix. Realizing that if you believe that your talents and intelligence are fixed and you were born with them and they will never change or get better, life is a terrifying place filled with nothing but insecurity. Because no matter what, if you're the smartest person, I'll make you go stand next to Usain Bolt, and he's going to make you realize you're slow as hell, right? If you're Usain Bolt, I'm going to have you, play chess with the grandmaster, and he's going to whoop your ass. If you think you're the wittiest guy in the world, I'm going to have a guy that's 6'7" and 350 pounds of muscle, and he's just going to slap you around and embarrass you, right? So no matter what you're good at, someone is going to make you feel bad. They're going to dominate you in some other area. But if, on the other hand, you can flip it over and say, the story I tell myself is that of the learner, right? I am the greatest learner that time has ever seen. Why? Because I'm willing to put more time into it than anybody else. Those are all things I can control. I don't say I'm the most efficient learner. I just say that I'm willing to dedicate more time and energy to learning, to growing, to getting better, and that I will get my ego out of the way. That's the last part to getting out of the matrix. You have to be open to being changed, right? So I walk into any encounter, but especially this show, and I open myself up to being changed. I open myself up that you will say something that will resonate with me, or that as I was doing the research on you, I came across many things that I was like, wow, this is encountering your worldview has changed me for sure. And some of it was it's given me powerful stories that I can incorporate, like what happened with Facebook, and I run through in my head what that would have been like for me, and how back when I was chasing money, that would have been the most devastating thing that could have happened to me. And to have a hero to look up to that did it and went on to be so successful. And you guys, there is a treat waiting for you. Anybody at home, if you guys are trying to start a business, there's a treat waiting for you if you go on to Google and search Noah Kagan plus Creative Live, and to watch him help this guy realize what his toothbrush business was really about. And he helps him. The guy comes on the show thinking he's just going to be tutored, and he walks off the stage. Think about that. He comes on just thinking he's going to be tutored, that he doesn't have a business, that it's off in the future. He'd been working on it for 9 months. He'd spent $5,000 of his own money capitalizing this thing. And before he walked off the stage, this man helped him sell multiple toothbrushes. It was bonkers. And like, as the guy at home, I was way more blown away than the guy with his toothbrushes. Yeah. I was like, what is happening? This is black magic. It totally freaked me out. And that one thing was like, I've got to get this guy on the show. Because you apply it to so many areas of your lives. Really, really astonishing.
Awesome.
All right, so before we go, tell me what you consider to be a life well lived.
A life well lived.
And to preface it a little bit, I ask this because what I really want to know is what somebody thinks the meaning of life is. But I find that people get tripped up with that a little bit.
Yeah.
So just a life well lived, but in that context.
After Mint, and I was building Facebook games, I actually hung out with Tim Ferriss in Argentina. And my goal at that point in life was to go work abroad. I wanted to just go and work abroad on the computer. And so I went to Argentina. I drank a lot of wine. I ate a lot of meat. I learned how to tango. And then I spent months thinking about the purpose of life. I was like, I will get the answer. And I kept going circular. What's the purpose? There's no purpose. There's purpose. What's this thing? And then you read all these books. You read Dalai Lama's books, like The Art of Happiness, and a lot of books around it. And I could never find one. And then I kind of said, well, what if there is no purpose? I think sometimes in life we do things and we want a sticker. We do this stuff and this achievement, and you kind of look around and you're like, where's my sticker? And there isn't one. And life just keeps moving forward. And at that point, I realized, okay, well, if there's no purpose around this and I don't get an award when I die, well, why don't I just try to make life as enjoyable as possible, and I focus on happiness? And I know it's hard because people define happiness differently, but how do I enjoy life to the fullest for myself? And so like my well-lived life, I don't know if I want kids or not. I think work-wise, I just want to keep enjoying and creating things I want to see in the world. That's all I want to continue doing, and ideally with people that I love. Like I want to be around the people that I'm just really, like they make me a better person, and I enjoy sharing it. Like I have a great way you can identify that is how is your energy before and after interacting with someone? If your energy's same or lower, get rid of them. If it's same or better most of the time, that's who I want to be around. And so I think that's what it would be. It's just like being good to the people around me and enjoying life for myself.
I feel it so strongly, and the sense of when you're being creative, feeling more alive, is really interesting. And along those lines, tell people why for you, obviously it's just for you, but why for you is it better now at AppSumo than it was, say, at Intuit?
Intel.
Intel,
It's the same in hell, it's all the same cubicle life. I think one thing that I'm doing better at, and I think has helped me in terms of living a fulfilled life and a life worth living, is just committing to things. And actually committing and giving it something that you're proud of. Like I will say at Facebook, as much as it was short or long tenure, I grew probably the most in my professional career because it was the hardest. At the time it sucked. But afterwards I was like, man, I was around really amazing people, I was pushed the most. And I think it's easy if we're not committed to things for us to kind of give out. Like, okay, I give out, I back off. But a lot of times it's going, like letting that be your compass and your guide when things are uncomfortable. And at Facebook it was that, and so trying to go more towards that. And so at Intel, like, you know, I just played on Excel for 30 minutes a day. I'd sleep in the office. I literally brought a sleeping bag and I like blocked the cubicle with my chair, and I didn't have a candle, but I should have had a candle and like a pillow and stuff. And I knew it wasn't that, being an entrepreneur sucks. In terms of people glamorize, like, oh, you're an entrepreneur and no, you're working most of the time.
Right.
And there's like a few minutes of the day that are special like this where we get to come share some of our war stories and our great stories. But I knew that I just wanted to work on things myself. And I wanted to create something that like I could personally be behind. And at Intel, it was like I was doing supply chain optimization. And so I knew, I was like, man, this is not where I want to be. I was like, I'm going to quit. I will quit in January and I will start something. I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I'm going to at least move forward and do it so that I can run my own business. And so now at AppSumo, I basically, and I think this is what everyone should do, is like create the work that you want to go do every day.
Yeah.
Right? So for you, you have a company to run, you have all these things, but for you, doing this content, sharing this with people, and taking your time out of your day to do it is very important for you. And I think that, you know, that's why you've created it, which is amazing. And I think everyone should have that, or as best they can. Like, so if your day job sucks, start trying to do things at night, start doing it at lunch, wake up a bit earlier. Wake up a bit earlier. It's not going to happen for you. So start making it for yourself so that you can look forward on Sundays and Mondays. And there's going to be a Tuesday that sucks, right? And then you asked me earlier, like, how do I make sure my weeks are good? I reevaluate my weeks. So if I'm going through a week on Sunday and I'm seeing that all my weeks are like having a lot of meetings, I'm like, fuck meetings. So I canceled all my meetings on Monday because I didn't create a company or go to a company to have meetings all day. It's up to you. It's up to me. It's up to us to create the lives we want to live. And that's pretty good.
It was really good. Awesome. Noah, thank you so much.
Dude,
man.
pleasure.
This has been incredible.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Guys, you're going to have a good time with this one. Drop him in, Noah Kagan. You'll find a ton of amazing videos. He has many websites, so I'll let him tell you which ones they are.
You should check out sumome.com. That's the main thing we're focused on. If you want to learn a little more about me, okdork.com is my personal diary.
And all of it is fantastic. I've read through the vast majority of the stuff that this guy has out there, and it is all universally incredible. You're going to love it. I hope you guys were as impacted by him as I have been. Please leave some comments here. It would be absolutely incredible to see what you guys are up to. We'd love to have you join us here in the audience. We have some guests with us today. It's been amazing to see some fresh new faces. And if you want to do that, go to InsideQuest.com, click on Get Tickets. Also, like this bad boy. And all the engagement's been absolutely amazing. We thank you guys so much for making this a really vital community and for helping each other. That really is the goal of all of this, to help each other get out of the matrix and do something amazing with your life. Take a note from this man. Have a high degree of intention and don't let anything stop you. If this man can get dropped to his knees with a $150 million price tag, get back up, go on to create several multi-million-dollar companies, you guys can do anything you set your mind to as well. So with that, until next week, my friends, be legendary. Take care. Noah, thank you so much, man. That was absolutely incredible.